Hello.
Hey, hey, what's up?
What a great way to start the show today.
Yes, Solange is one of my favorite artists, and
Yeah.
then Master P, No
It's
Limit Soldier.
Listen, we got to remember that Master P and Lil Wayne have been in the game for a minute. They're like lifers.
Yes, for lifers, for sure. I don't follow Wayne that much. Um, Drop It Like It's Hot, classic. Um, but definitely love Master P and everything that he stands for in terms of like entrepreneurship, getting out the trunk, the whole nine, life insurance, all the things. I feel like he's been um putting game and knowledge into communities for a very long time. You just have to
Yeah,
listen, pay attention.
facts. Did you ever watch? This is, a deep cut here. Did you ever watch MTV Cribs?
I did, but I don't recall Master P's tour. So
It
that one might have
was
been before.
great. We might have to grab that one from the archives because Lil Wayne is on it. I think he's like 10. He's young. I mean, he could be
Okay.
17, but he looks like he's 10.
Mm-hmm.
We have so much to talk about today. It's kind of nice. While I love having guests, I feel like you and I have so many things to cover. And um, one of the things that I always have to remind myself is that I probably know a lot more about venture and investing than a lot of people. And I always assume that people know more. And I think that's a human thing, just in general, that like we forget that people don't know the same things that we do. And you have worked with founders for a long time and have been in a lot of rooms. So I'm excited to share what we know about what we know today, this afternoon.
This afternoon, yes. I mean, most of us clocking in, I think, are going to be from the East Coast. Let us know where y'all are tuning in from. That I'd be really curious to see how many East Coast folks are represented on recording as
Yes,
well.
we are constantly behind here on the West Coast, which is why we get anxious if we're not up by 5:30 because y'all are already drinking your second cup of coffee. It's like mid
Mhm.
morning, you know. But here we are. It's actually like still dark in the office where I am.
Yikes.
Yes.
Fun fact though, fun fact. I had my first cup of coffee um when I started working like hardcore in the impact investing space. So probably like 5 years ago. But I was in Portugal and it was nasty. And I said, never again. And I'm going to just stick to my matcha.
So, wait, so you drink tea
I do drink tea
and you go with the matchas.
and I go with the matchas. The coffee is just like disgusting. But I was like, everyone around me is freaking wired. And we didn't get a lot of sleep. I'm exhausted, jet lagged, all of the things. And they were like putting these espressos back. And so I'm like, well, maybe this will perk me up. But it was just so disgusting. It's very
Yeah.
nasty.
Did you put any sugar or milk or cream in
I
your
put all the
latte?
things in it. It was like white and it was still disgusting.
Oh man, yeah, it's definitely not for everyone, and it can be bad for your stomach. There's so many things. Whereas green tea, it gives you this, overwhelming sometimes feeling of wellness, which
Mm.
I have definitely had a panic attack or two drinking a Trente green tea from Starbucks. That's what I used to do when I worked at Yelp. And
Oh.
then next thing I knew, I was because I was just so well
Oh, okay.
that the green tea just like put me over the edge. So I had to find a happy medium somewhere, which is where I think us matcha girlies, where we find our home.
Yes. Shout out to the matcha girlies. And guys,
Indeed.
you know, streaming with us today. So,
Yes.
anyways, let's talk
Yes.
about entrepreneurship, all the corporate baddies out there, how
Yes.
you guys don't need to listen to Carisha, please, and you don't need any scammers because you're making all the money. You're in corporate America. You're doing the thing, and we are so proud of you.
Yes, keep repping. And I I want to hear from you. You started Noir Impact while you were still working
Yes.
or working in a corporate position. And something I preach regularly, I did not take that path. I left my corporate role and then started. And part of me wishes I had started sooner. But tell me, uh, what was that like for you? And what did you learn about yourself as you were building Noir Impact?
Well, just for clarification, we want to make sure we get the record straight.
Let's do it.
Never been a corporate baddie, always been a nonprofit management
Facts.
girl.
Facts.
So I've always been in the nonprofit management space. And I started Noir, honestly, just kind of picking up freelance work to supplement my nonprofit income. So that's just something that I did. And in fact, it wasn't even called Noir. It was
Mm,
something really cute, like Missy C Sweets and all the things. And so I primarily have focused on events because that's what I was like known for, and certified in and all of the things. And so um, I was just doing that on the side for some folks. And that's honestly how Noir Impact got started. But as I was working in nonprofit management many years ago, I got to the point where I wasn't feeling my job situation. And I'm like, I want to leave, but I'm so beholden to a check, right? And I didn't have another job lined up. So my family, they're like, girl, the Lord didn't tell you to leave. Because I'm like, God told me that it's time. And my grandma said, God did not tell you that, honey. You don't have another job. So, this was years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I need to find something. I need to find something." And I didn't find anything, but I was just like, this is starting to affect my mental health, all of the things, like, why? And so I talked to my partner about it, and he was just like, "Go ahead, babe. I believe in you." So I jumped off the ledge, left my job with no other job lined up.
mhm,
But I had this existing LLC. And once I let people know, like, hey, I left, a lot of opportunities started coming my way. And I was just like, wow, I'm glad I trusted and I took that bet on myself because no one should be in a situation that isn't healthy for them, that isn't growing them, that makes them question themselves. No one should be in that position. But a lot of people are because
mhm,
you have to sustain yourself. You have to take care of your family, your responsibilities, and you need a consistent check. And so for me, years ago, when I took that bet on myself and I saw how immediately the universe, God, all the things were working together for my good, I absolutely was like, okay, entrepreneurship is where it's at. But it also goes back to my grandfather's legacy and his wealth story, which was him getting laid off and saying he would never work for the man again.
mhm,
And for me, it wasn't so much that, it was more so like, I will never put myself in a position that's unsafe, unhealthy for a paycheck, that I need to learn how to provide value to myself or for myself, um, and revenue. So that's really what happened. Now, just to clear it up, baby girl loves a consistent 9 to 5. So, um, it didn't take long before people were hitting me up with like different job opportunities to transition to. And I absolutely took them, and I took the benefits and all the things that come with working a 9 to 5 versus an entrepreneur journey. But that's what fits me, my lifestyle with my family and responsibilities. I just like having my own business because no matter what happens in the job landscape, I know I'm going to be good. And also multiple streams of income.
Listen,
Like,
you got it.
how do you last in this world without it? So I think it's really important. That was actually a book that one of my professors, Dr. Olabai from Rutgers University,
Mm.
he told us to read this book like freshman year, and it really changed my life.
With love.
Multiple streams of income. Let's see.
Oh,
It's over here. It's by Robert G. Allen.
okay.
Okay. We're just a show that loves books. Every week
We
we
are.
talk
I
about
miss
different
my
books.
bookcase so much, having it behind me to do the exact thing. I did, however, bring this today.
Mm. Oh yes. Shout out to Andre
Yeah.
Perry.
My mom was knitting the other day, and I was just like reading it to her. She's like, "Oh, it's really interesting.
Mm.
Not what I expected." We had some good discussions.
He's brilliant and has been on a tour, I feel like, for the past year and a half, going hard, hitting all the conferences, all the places, and rightfully so. Like, this is information that folks need. But yeah, so anyway, long story short, short story long, that's how Noir Impact was really born and why we sustain and keep her up and running no matter what, because you can't rely on anybody else
Mm-mm.
but yourself.
You damn right. You damn right. I can tell you my story.
Let's go.
So it's a little bit different in the sense that I was probably equal parts naive, arrogant, and bored. And it took me a solid like year and a half of my therapist being like, I think you should maybe really consider working for yourself. Because I was just like complaining about how all the people I worked with were not as smart as I was hoping they would be. Because, Obama says this, when you get into the rooms where it's only C-suites and the board, you look around, you're like, this is it. Like to no shade of the people I worked with. I highly respect the people I work with. I do think they're brilliant. And there was like nothing that was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm here. And a lot of it was I couldn't do a lot of the things that I wanted to do because there was so much bureaucracy. And being a head of DEI and coming from building sales teams, when you're building sales teams, you can ask for almost anything. And because you're selling the product that they've built, they're like, okay, well, we'll give it to you. We'll figure it out. So you can almost like bully your way into getting revenue for things. And then you move to the HR team, which is what I did. And people are like, we have to be patient. We had meetings about meetings about meetings about how to like convince the board to do certain things or to give us budget. I'm like, this is wild. This is wild. But it was such an amazing experience. And then of course, like doing a lot of the emotional labor of being the head of DEI, a lot of the work was trying to make people unracist, which is just such a I used to say I felt like such a what's it, Sisyphus? No. Who's the guy who rolls the rock up the hill and it keeps falling down?
You got
Is that
me.
Sisyphus? Okay.
Sure. Let's go with it.
um, and I'm reading a book about Greek mythology right now. I should know this. So in my last 6 months, I was like, all right, I need to make a plan. So I interviewed with a startup company that had 4 people, and I'm like, this is going to be a great transition for me, um, to have a stream of income and also start my consulting business.
Mhm.
So I ended up leaving, and my chief people officer was surprised, but like also really excited for me to launch my own consulting business. And I will never forget, she asked me, do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? And I was like, absolutely not. Like I could never imagine. And it was looking back at that, I'm like, I was already an entrepreneur in my job because I was starting a brand new role. And before that, I was building SDR teams that didn't exist, sales development reps. I was building sales teams that all sorts of things that didn't exist. And I just giggle when I look back at that. So when I started, same thing that happened with you, when I started my consulting business, it was like people found out that you're a free agent all of a sudden and they want to
Mm-hmm.
send work to you. So that was my first year. And then my second year, I just got kind of tired of doing the same DEI work all the time and having to sell people on the importance of this work. And also, like you, love a stable 9 to 5 because working on contracts, you're working on the contract while you're also working to get more work when the contract is over. And so over the last 6 years, I've had three 9 to 5s. Uh, all were leaderships for nonprofits. Um, but yeah, it was, I have never learned, I've learned so much, not only about like how to use QuickBooks, which I can't stand. But when you own your own business, you have to do everything. So you learn everything from QuickBooks, how to make a budget, what your taxes are, how to hire people, mistakes that can be made. So it's been a journey for sure,
Wow.
for sure.
Well, can you talk to us a little bit about how, as you were making that transition from corporate baddie to your own founder journey, when did you start like angel investing and all of that? Like, where did that come into play exactly for you?
Yeah. So I always wanted to, but I felt like I didn't have access to deals and things that I was drawn to. A lot of the stuff I heard about was things I learned from like my husband at the time, which were all like construction, real estate related. Um, and I really wanted to invest in cannabis. I just loved the idea of the whole cycle of talking to farmers, understanding all of the regulations, how the plant goes from plant to say gummy or plant to chocolate. And at the time, my husband, at the time, was now my ex-husband, also worked in a lot of grow houses in San Francisco. So I was just like fascinated by the whole thing. And we ended up investing in a chocolate company. We got a lot of chocolate also. Um, and it was a disaster, an absolute disaster because the regulations were not because the industry was not as advanced as a lot of other industries and because the founder didn't really know what he was doing. We ended up getting basically bought out, but not really returned from a larger investor when they got bigger retail infrastructure.
Mm.
And after that, I was like, I'm never investing directly in a company ever again. Because
Hmm.
while I was really excited about this, I ended up being so excited that I forgot that I had to make my money work for me. And uh, it, and I so easily say yes to things that as long as someone else can say that for me, who is less biased, then I'm
Mm.
going to be better off. So after that um, disaster, after we lost quite a bit of money, I was like, I need to learn quite a bit more about venture because we got into this not knowing enough. So I ended up taking during the pandemic. I just had my second baby as well. I took 2 Stanford continuing studies courses on early stage venture capital investing with Essie Mawadi. Shout out to Essie. She has a fund down in Palo Alto, and she's French. Um, and I was like, okay, what she would teach in the class was the thing that you should be taking away from all of these sessions is you need to network. The curriculum that I'm going to go over in every class is whatever. You're getting the basics, but y'all need to get here a half an hour early, network with everyone, understand and ask yourself what are the things that you really want to invest in, and then ask people to introduce you. So that's what I did. I put in the chat during one of the sessions, like, I really want to invest in a women run fund and I want to learn more about that whole thing. And immediately someone texted me back a call, like, get on this call tomorrow. This one fund is raising. So I did. And when I got on the call, I was like, what is this a party? What's happening? It was like 50, 60 women, all who were VPs, like CMOs, chief medical officers, just like these aunties that I wanted to be in the room with. And I'm like, what do I got to do? I forgot all about the venture part. I was like, what do I got to do to have access to these women all the time? And the way that the fund manager, Julie Castro Abrams, my auntie's sister, broke it down was we are changing the rules and making sure that we can max out the number of LPs. So what that means is funds can set aside a chunk of space for LPs who are investing like less than 100K to make up their fund, but you can only have so many. You can only have up to like 249. So like we're going to have 249 LPs, and I was able to only invest 25K, which was $6,250 a year over 4 years. Which to me, I was like, okay, I could either do that or buy a Cartier bracelet. I'm gonna do this.
Mhm.
Um, and that investing in that fund completely changed my life, my career, my perspective on how we work with companies, how we work with founders. And within 6 months, I got a call from another fund manager named Shyla Nieves Burney. Shout out to Shyla. And within one call, I was like, yeah, I want to invest in your fund too. Um, she was based out of Atlanta, and my last role when I built a sales team, I opened an office in Atlanta. And when I was in Atlanta that whole time, I was like, there's so much talent here. Like, why do we not know more about this? And her fund was all about the Southeast. I was like, yes, I want to have access to what's happening in the Southeast because it's just so exciting. So let me
Mhm.
invest here. I invested 50K into that fund, which was $10,000 a year. And let me tell you, those capital calls hurt very much. um, but in being involved with those funds, I wasn't only investing in the funds and the founders, but I was also investing myself, investing in my own personal development and understanding what value I brought and what my unique value was to these founders. And that enabled me to understand the different types of work I could do, the different types of consulting I could do. And that's how I really started to expand my offering.
Amazing. So, just so everyone can stay with it,
Mhm.
explain to us the difference between angel investing and VC investing.
Yep. So I'll start even bigger. So you have the public markets, which is like your stocks, your mutual funds, your bonds, all that stuff. And then you have private equity. So anything to do with private equity is where you're not on public markets. It's public equity would be you giving Delancey $200 to start a company and you own 5% of it. It's like Shark Tank. So within private equity, you have actual private equity, you have hedge funds, you have venture capital. Um, and so within venture capital, the ways that you can invest in founders is through angel investing, through what we call syndicates, which I'll explain in a second, or through like venture funds. And
Mhm.
so angel investing is simply you as an individual person investing in one company at a time. The difference between angel investing and investing as an LP, as a limited partner, what I do is instead of investing in one company and writing checks to one company and risking everything on one company, you are giving a certain dollar amount to a fund manager. They manage a large pool of money, usually $10 million or more, and it's their job to invest in the types of companies that they know are going to return money. So you get all of the upside, you get to celebrate, but you don't really get much of the downside, which is having to do all the paperwork, having to do all chasing all the cats to get those checks in. So that's why I like it better. Does that answer your question in terms of what the differences are?
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to make sure that people understood those differences. But most importantly, what would you say would be the easier mechanism for like a person dipping their toe into investing? So they're already accredited. What would you recommend? So I know your preference, but like what's actually going to be easiest?
Yeah, I'll start by making sure everybody knows what accredited means. So in 2020, there was a new law that came out that if you make over 200K a year yourself as an individual or 300K in like a marriage, or you own over $1 million in assets, you are an accredited investor. And also, just so a lot of people know, when you invest in either a fund or startups, they don't always check to make sure that you're accredited. They just trust that you are. They just want to make sure that you can send those checks in when they call them. Um, so if you are new to investing and want to get started, I would highly recommend joining a syndicate. So what is a syndicate? A syndicate is a group, a band, a community of people who, there are probably one or two people who like run the syndicate, and for every company that you invest in, they'll essentially spin up an LLC, which we call a special purpose vehicle. They'll get a bunch of checks from people, and then there'll be a single investor into a founder. So what that means is you could be an angel investor yourself, direct or invest directly into companies. Say you give them $100,000, and that's just you investing. With a syndicate, it's saying this LLC is investing in a founder in a company, and you are one of the people in that LLC. So the reason I like that better is because it gives you a level of separation from the founder. It also gives you a less like paperwork to do. The other thing I recommend for people is just start working with founders. Start working with founders, start doing advisory work for, say, equity or for small checks, because particularly for our community, when we think about investing and angel investing, the industry is kind of predatory, or it can be predatory. And when we are investing naturally, we want our founders to win. We also want our money to work for us. And there are so many ways that we can invest without necessarily having to cut big checks. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they're in these corporate positions, and something I wish I knew. If I had known like how valuable my experience selling into HR, working with HR, how valuable my experience was knowing how to use an application performance monitoring platform, I didn't realize how valuable that was going to be until after I started investing. Now, if I started working with founders before that, it's like I could have made more money. I could have, helped them and gotten equity from those companies. So there's so many different ways for us to invest. It's just a matter of like what works best for you.
Love that. I know I'm picking your
Thanks.
brain today, but
I know.
also I'm thinking about I've been hearing a lot about folks encouraging actually founders to invest.
Hmm.
Yeah, just like a little bit a part of a creative fundraising strategy. You
Say more
know,
about
like,
that.
I've been seeing folks kind of encouraging founders who are in their growth stage consider investing themselves. They're a founder. They kind of understand what that experience is like. They've hit some level of success already. And then, you know, it could be a good financial decision for them to make some early bets into other people and
Hmm.
companies. So just wondering like if you've seen any of that stuff happening on the West Coast, um, or if
I
you've
mean, it
heard of.
happens all the time out here. I'd say in Silicon Valley, most founders who have enough wealth to invest are absolutely investing. When I was at Yelp, our CEO was definitely investing in other companies. There's two reasons why it's a great idea. One, if you're a founder of a particular vertical, you have a wild amount of experience and expertise in that vertical. So when you're working with founders, not only can you provide for them a wild amount of expertise, but you're also gearing yourself up for potential acquisitions. So if you've got it, so for another example with Yelp is we were courting a bunch of companies that did reservations at restaurants or did delivery, and that those companies we ended up acquiring them. So if you have a smaller company, say um, like a CPG company, and there's a particular like technology or material that you want to create, thinking about, do I build it or do I buy it? And that works at so many different levels, whether it's building or buying some sort of software you need, or building a product
Mhm.
or buying a product. Those are all things that we should be thinking about.
Love that. Build it or should I buy it?
I'm in that
So,
conversation right now.
yeah, I mean, you're in build mode right now. You're
Very much so.
definitely building something new. How does it feel to kind of chart into a different space and territory? I know Sanctum is, you've built things before, but Sanctum feels a little bit different. So, are there any things that you're taking from your past corporate baddie life or from your previous businesses into the foundation?
So many things. I love that you asked this. So many things. So one of the things that's most prevalent, like today, this morning, having built sales teams and having worked at corporations where you have a Salesforce team, like you have three people who work for the company. Their only job is to make sure that Salesforce, which is a large CRM for everyone, customer relationship management, um, their job is to make sure that that thing works and they get paid a lot of money. And so when I went off on my own, I was like, I can't live without a proper CRM. Like I need to have my data and my contacts like up to date so that I can go and ask whatever software I'm using any question, like who are the contacts who work for companies that have over 5 million or 500 million in revenue. I want to email them something. And not being able to do that, oh my God, it's one of the hardest things I've had to adjust to. And as a nonprofit founder, I don't have all sorts of money to be buying CRMs and buying teams that can do all this stuff. So the last 6 years, I've been struggling with different CRM platforms, trying different combinations of like, okay, if I use this for my emails and I use Google Sheets, which I haven't been able to do, then like, how can I make sure that my contacts are up to date? And I still don't have that answer. In fact, this morning I was on a phone call with one CRM company. I'm like, why does it have to cost so much when I can just build it myself? Like,
I
why would
was
I?
gonna that.
What's that?
I was gonna ask you that because we have so many tools out there now that, maybe you can just take a stab at building your own custom CRM.
Yes, there is that. So it's like when I think about uh like what kind of house I want to live in, some people really like turnkey houses. Some people liked a fixer upper. When it comes to like where I live physically, I love a fixer upper. I love living in the middle of nowhere. I love doing all that stuff myself. When it comes to business, I want turnkey because I want to be able to do all the other things that I want to do, not build a effing CRM for 2 days when I could be spending that time engaging with my community. So those are the things that, uh, while in build mode, I'm constantly uh, trying to prioritize things, and it's really difficult. We also are fundraising. So I'm fundraising while I'm moving us from the community platform that we were on for a year to a new one. So I'm both doing like engineering stuff, 5 minutes, and then I'm talking to people who could potentially fund us another 5 minutes. So it's a lot of context shifting, but I love it. I got ADHD. So like when I can switch topics like on a dime, it helps me stay awake. It helps me stay energized.
Gotcha. That and the green tea.
And the green tea. Yes.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Oh, good
And
stuff.
green tea.
Good stuff.
Yeah. What were some things that uh whenever you would return to noir, maybe between roles, what was like the first thing that you're like, we need a renovation here?
Well, I would say I definitely needed to like up my technology because what happens is, and I think this was what's happening with you. You're working in a corporate nonprofit setting, you're working in an established setting. So you have all the premium packages, you have all the subscriptions, you have all the things. And so definitely just like making sure I make that investment and like purchase all of those subscriptions, premium LinkedIn, like you gotta have it.
You
You
really
know what I'm
do.
saying? You gotta have it. And they definitely went up on the price in the last year, I feel like.
I have been paying for LinkedIn
So,
Premium as long as I can remember. I don't know what I'd do without it.
mhm.
Yes. What else though?
When I was a part of a sales team, probably back when I was courting you, definitely using that LinkedIn Premium, reaching out, sending those LinkedIn messages and notes, etc.
Yeah.
So it was clutch, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Good
LinkedIn Premium is
investment.
like your fundamental tool that you use.
No, it's
Okay.
not. I would say, honestly, what is my fundamental tool? My fundamental tool is like my Google Suites and
Mm,
like cleaning out and having all of my folders and my project management systems. And also, just like I need to do a better job even now as it stands, like with marketing and like spending money to make it look cutesy. I honestly have a ton of, not a ton, but I have a good amount of like word of mouth referrals. So I never needed to rely on the glitz and glam. But in these new days, um, I definitely want to like, be a little cutesy
hmm
if I
But
can
you
have a
raise
little aesthetic, but I've never needed that to like lock in a client or anything of that nature. And so therefore I never like invested in those things. But I do want to level up a little bit.
Yeah, but you raised such a good point, Shernay, and it's something that I've also grappled with in my entrepreneurial experience. I've worked with people who were like, "We don't need that. Let's just email people. Let's just make the phone calls, slang the deals. I don't care what we do, make an invoice on Google Sheets, but like let's get the deal done." And we did really well. The whole time though, I would be like itching and scratching of like, but in a year, like when we have so many clients, like how are we going to keep them all straight? And that would always be in the back of my mind. Um, and on the other end, you have people and a lot of founders that we often work with who like never sell anything. They're just constantly working on their tech stack and their technology to the point where it's like a safety blanket.
Mm, interesting.
My one of the fund managers I talked to, she says spreadsheets can be like a safety blanket. Like if you spend too much time uh, building out model uh, hypothetical scenarios that can happen, but you never actually do anything, you're not actually doing anything. You're just like sitting in
Right.
the spreadsheet. But this whole thing leads me to, the fact that you have worked with so many founders, and I'm curious to know, like in your exposure to founders, how often is that type of stuff the case versus like people who on the other side are all of their house is super messy, but they run a great business in terms of what they service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And it's interesting that you bring that up because I find that from my experience, the early stage founders that I've worked with in the past, the ones that have like the super dope aesthetic kind of had they behind closed doors really trying to get it together.
Yeah.
But they have great, they've invested in great PR or, branding, or they have like a great stage presence that works out. Um, but when you actually look at, are they communicating with investors? Um, like scheduled, communications, follow ups with the people that have already invested in them? Are they meeting their goals? Not so much, but on the internet streets, on the LinkedIn streets, it's like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? So that I have found that to be true more times than not. And I will say all of my other founders, like, I think people are just grinding and they are very cheap with it. So they'll immediately just tell themselves, like, I don't have the money to spend on that. I'm not going to, like, it's this scarcity mindset of, even when you think maybe it would be okay for them to kind of like invest in certain tech stacks or whatever, just to help them build and get through their raise better. They're so tight with it that they miss out. So it's definitely a polarizing like scale where you just have folks on the very deep ends. Um, Very few founders kind of hit that, early stage founders that I've run into kind of hit that sweet spot of knowing what's the right amount. You know
It's
what I'm
really
saying?
hard. It's really hard, and particularly if you're not white or male, and or like not a stereotypical venture backable business, you're probably a creator, you may not be a technologist, and you have great vision. That's kind of the side I am on. It just so happens that I have experience like building stuff and knowing what is needed. But it but even like being in a moderate, like that just means that both sides for me are not where I want them to be. And I have found that I have to not only understand what I'm good at, but also the type of work that I like to do. So I break things into 4 buckets: A, B, C, D work. A work is like the stuff that both energizes me, that I absolutely like to do. So that for me is like if I could spend every day writing, walking my dog, and jumping in a pool from time to time, that's the work I would do. The D work that's in like the bottom quadrant is like accounting, taxes, buying, certificates of insurance. I don't like do that stuff.
Yeah. You know what, too? I'm not going to mention any names, but there are like 2 to 3 founders that come to my mind that I feel like really have it together. And when I think about what could be the common denominator, I feel like they just have excellent advisors.
Mhm.
Um, and so I I'm just now thinking about it, but I wonder if that really is a part of that secret sauce that founders should look more into, is not just putting a name on your pitch deck, like, oh yeah, I know such and such, and this person is one of my advisors, but like, who is truly going to be your advisor, who has already built something super incredible or has access to a certain type of network, wealth, or knowledge. We've already talked about with this podcast about wealth being many different things, not just financial. The same thing with founders having advisors. You need folks that can be many different things. Hopefully, they've built something in your arena, but maybe they're bringing something else to the table as a fierce CMO or some type of like financial guru, etc. But I find that, again, the top 3 founders that come to my mind, that I shall name no names, they just have an incredible advisory team.
Yeah, Charnay,
And I think that's the differentiator.
sometimes I'm like, "Are you a mall cop?" Because that segue was so smooth because I was literally just going to start talking about advisors
Oh, wow.
and bringing it back to, a lot of our audience, they're in corporate positions or they have been in corporate positions, and they're pivoting. And I often don't think people realize how much value they can bring to founders as an advisor. And on the other end, I don't think that a lot of founders understand how valuable of an experience that is for their advisors, even when you can't pay them. That's what I think a lot of founders that I work with get caught up on sometimes, is like, I want to be able to pay the people or compensate them in some way, as opposed to understanding that like you are already giving them so much value because you're exposing them to the type of work that you do, which they don't have access to during the day in their 9 to 5. And what going back to the question of like how should people start investing, it's like just start working with founders. When I started that, when I was in corporate positions, I just felt my wealth exponentially grow, because like I know how to do this, I know how to do that, because I talked to so many founders during the day,
Mhm.
and I felt so fulfilled that when I left my company, I knew how to do a lot more stuff. Not only did I know how to do a lot more stuff, but I wasn't as jaded about having to do it all myself because I talked to so many founders who are already doing it. And it's something that I have to mind myself of as a founder myself, is to really lean on my advisors, like really lean on them and put them to work.
Well, let's sit there for a second. What does putting an advisor to work really mean? So you're doing it currently with Sanctum, but for any founders out there, if you ask someone to be your advisor or you have an advisory team, how can you leverage that access to the best of, your ability? What would that look like?
The first thing to kind of the first mindset you want to have is like they're your bosses. If you can shift your mind to be like, I have a group of bosses that I report to, then everything else can kind of fall into place. So, for example, like when you don't necessarily need to have a big board, but when you have advisors, you want to get them together every quarter, and that's like your report card. You're like creating your own accountability buddy team. Another corporate term I learned. You're giving yourself accountability buddies. So when you get them together with all 8 of them, let's say, and you're presenting on what you've been doing this last quarter, you want to take that advice and you want them to tear up whatever you're doing and have them ask you a ton of questions, because their opinion is going to matter because they're representing the market and the people that you are targeting. Um, and it's so when you're a founder, you can be so isolated sometimes, and you forget that other people have different opinions than you and different expertise. And unless you have consistent access to those advisors who are giving you feedback, that's one thing. The second thing is make sure they're connecting with people. Make it easy
Mm.
for them. When you have template emails that have like a paragraph and here's what we need, and you're sending it to your advisors and saying, forward this email to 3 people. That's how you put them to work, is you really want to exploit their network as much as possible. That's what they want to do. Anything you'd add?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't use the word exploit. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I personally think everything you said was correct. I would just say my approach has been, I don't like being as extractive. Now, maybe that's why
Mm,
I'm not some unicorn right now. However, I would like to offer, maybe there's, some advisors that you have access to that have they're, especially if they're not on the payroll, like they're volunteering their services. Yes, they're your pseudo bosses, but I don't know if the relationship should come from such an extractive place. It's really, in my opinion, I probably would approach it like, how can we find some level of mutual value? So, yes, I'm showing my report card. I'm asking you to beat the pavement, send out all this information, send it to 3 different contacts, yada, yada, yada. But also, what can I offer them? And also, like, how can I build relationship or continue to strengthen a relationship without always having to ask? Now, don't get me wrong. I have some folks in my village that, especially after the last couple of weeks I've had, where they're like, girl, and I'm like, I know I'm only always calling you in a crisis, right? Um, so there are people that, like, you can do that with, but I highly, like, I don't recommend that being the relationship with your advisors, where you're only contacting them A, when that quarterly time is happening, B, when you need them to, like, do something for you. But, like, how can you nurture that experience, because they're on a journey experience, they're on a founder journey with you, and you want the ride to be enjoyable. And so,
and
like, exploit, like, yes, it gets the job done, but I'm also thinking about like how can we strengthen relationships beyond being so extractive from the founder side of things.
I feel like I love that we're having this conversation because I feel like we're saying the same things using different words.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, when you have a team of advisors, you are giving them so much value. And by putting them to work, you're giving them value because you are, and when I say exploiting, I mean, like, let's say, um, Sade, you're one of my advisors, whether you know it or not.
Oh,
And
excuse
the
me. I
way
need to update my LinkedIn, y'all. I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like
you will
let
be
me
officially
change
soon.
that.
But the way that I've exploited, I'll say, your network is I called you up last year and I was like, Sharnay, who do I got to meet in Philly? And you gave me 10 different names. I set up time with each of them. And I imagine that in that process, you were like, oh, I do know a lot of people. Not that you didn't know that already,
Yeah,
but
come on now. You know this. You know I'm the plug.
like that exercise for you was like, oh, who could
Hmm.
be helpful to my sister here? And so when I say exploit, that's exactly what I mean. It's like let me reflect back to you what's valuable to me in your network. And my message that I always like, the drum that I'm always beating is like, if you're in a corporate position and you want to work with founders, you got to go to work. You got to be ready to work. And there's so many board members who like just don't do much. And it's like when you go to the gym, if you don't put anything into it, you're not going to get anything out. Um, so hopefully that kind of helps us meet in the middle. But I do think we're saying the
Yeah.
same thing.
I think you are absolutely right. And I appreciate you clearing that up. Also, this makes me think about when I was working specifically with global impact investors. Um, there was a woman out of Canada who just really loved impact investing. And she previously, was like a tech um, CEO and just had a lot of experience. And so for her, investing, like if you wanted her to sign a check, she specifically wanted to advise the founder.
Yep.
And her check would not come without you agreeing to like have her all in the mix. And so that's something that we can also kind of like talk a little bit about in the few minutes left. But and not every founder wants that from an investor because you might have an investor that you actually don't necessarily align with as an advisor for whatever reason, or maybe you don't want them as like involved. But you will run across investors who actually want to be a pseudo advisor as well.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes, like you said, you do want those people. And often, I mean, we could have a whole nother Oprah about like your cap table and who your investors are and which ones you want on your board, which ones you don't. Like that's a whole can of worms and an episode of Jerry Springer that I've been in a few too many times with a bunch of my founders. Woo! Oh, um, man, just getting shudders just thinking about all that stuff. Um, but yeah, there's just so much that we can do as individuals, no matter what level we're at, to feed and contribute to the system of innovation that's like right outside our door. And something that I've so appreciated in our friendship is getting to know the Philly landscape. And I say this every time I'm in Philly and every time I start something of like Silicon Valley is boring. It's boring. Like, how many more community platforms do we need? This weekend, I looked at 8 different community platforms, and I'm like, these all do the same thing. Why did all of these people start one? Oh, it's because you're in Silicon Valley and you can go out and get a check. And even though you're exactly like this other community, people are still going to give you money. Whereas in our community, it's like, oh, there's already a hair care brand. So I don't want to do that. And we allow that to stop us from being innovators. But and when we, as regular people who are interested in these things, the more we can involve ourselves in the innovation economy through advisory and through helping people get things going, we're so much more enriched as a people, and
Mhm.
all ships rise with the tide.
All ships rise with the tide.
Hmm. What is an exciting product or founder that you're excited about right now?
I don't want to mention any names because I don't want people to be mad. I
Okay.
really don't.
Well,
I
how
work
about,
with a couple of founders. I work with a lot of founders. I love all my founders. Shout out to all the founders that I've been able to be in community with over the past couple of years.
they know who they are.
Um, they know who they are. You know. Um, what was the other part of the question other than my founders?
Um, what is something you're excited about, like a technology that you're excited about?
Oh, maybe we can get this person on the line. Super excited about this super AI technology platform that really helps you go deeper with your connections
I know who you're talking about.
and network. It's called Rise. Kind of looks like Riz, but it's
Not
Rise.
to be confused. Yes.
And that founder is Mr. Israel Wilson. But I'm really excited about um, all of the different protocols and things like that that he's building out because you can use it for many different things.
Hmm.
So, founders who are building out their own platforms can like integrate it into what exists already. Folks that are trying to fundraise can use it. Folks that are trying to just like build community, whether you are in like a civic space and you're trying to like help constituents, or for Sanctum, as an example, you want to get off a circle
Hmm.
and do your thing. Um, it can do so many different things. So I'm really excited about that because I think he's moving and grooving and he's like kind of hitting all different um sectors.
Hmm.
Even with like faith-based institutions being able to leverage and use the platform. So I'm really
Hmm.
excited about that coming out of the New Jersey region.
Yes, it's so fascinating when you run into people not in their hometown. You like see them on the circuit, and I feel like I always see Israel not in New Jersey. I don't think I've ever seen him in New Jersey. But this was such a good conversation. I feel like again we just scratched the surface, and I'm reminding like I should definitely reach out to Israel and talk about what we can do together. Uh, I am excited about the rest of this week. We have another great week. I'm going to Dallas on Wednesday. We can talk more about yaks. Um, Anything you want to leave the people with before we sign off this afternoon?
Mm. Well, I just want to say someone this week slid in my LinkedIn DMs.
Oh,
It's like not like that. And and they said, I see you, you inspire me, rock on.
mm,
And I'm like, who, me? Doing what? I can't believe it. But it was so like the timing of it all was just so amazing that they were generous with their words and their time just to write that because you might think something in your head, you may see something online, it might come across your head like, oh wow, that's really cool. But did you take the time to let that person know?
mm,
Or does it remain with you? So I'm going to encourage everyone out there to, if you have a good thought about someone, don't keep it to yourself. Go ahead, send a LinkedIn message, slide in the DM, but don't get in trouble. Text, call, send out a bird call, whatever you have to do, just like let them know because you don't know how much that can impact someone's day, week, hour. It could be just what they need to kind of like keep pushing, keep moving. I know that it was for me from someone that I hadn't talked to in years
mm.
and like just thought it was just super kind, but also the perfect message for me in
Yeah.
this moment. So I encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, I love that. I usually send out those messages either late at night with an apology of like, pardon the late text, or like right after I've had too much coffee. I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at your thing. This is so great. Oh my God. And Sharna, you've been on the receiving end of some of those for sure.
Thank you.
But there's never the wrong time to send stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I will see you tomorrow. We're signing off, everyone. Don't forget to sign up for these so you can get reminders. Check out Impact Noir. Check out Sanctum Foundation. Ask us questions. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.